But today we have with us Ovik Roy, who's joined us many times at this table. He's a healthcare investment analyst, and Ovik knows, I think, about as much as anybody about healthcare policy and specifically about Obamacare. So my contention is, at least for now at this table, does it even matter? Do we have to repeal Obamacare, or will it collapse under its own weight? Allow me to make my argument. First, as we know, the Supreme Court said that the states do not have to expand their Medicare coverage. It would be nice if they did, but there will be no big penalty, no big withholding of federal funds, of their existing Medicare funds, if they do not. And as a result, at least at this point, 6 states have opted out of the Medicare expansion. We could put up a map and show you which of those states have chosen not to participate in the Medicaid expansion. I'm sorry, I'm saying Medicare. I'm talking about Medicaid expansion. It includes Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida, South Carolina, and Wisconsin. And there in orange, you can see those are some states that are still considering possibly opting out of the Medicaid expansion. Now, listen, Medicaid is the tool for expanding coverages to Americans here. We talked about Obamacare expanding coverage to 40 million Americans, right? But it was done through Medicaid. Now, this represents, at this point, 6 states opting out of it, 4 million of the 40 million prospective people who would be covered not now going to be covered if these states opt out. So that's one aspect of this. Will the expansion of Medicaid even take place if all these states opt out of it? But the second, and the one that really interests me, is the concept, the whole concept that we've debated of the penalty. Is it a tax, a penalty, penalty, tax? Does it matter? Will it even affect Americans? Listen, here is what the penalty will be over, starting in 2014 to 2016. We can show you what the minimum penalty for not obtaining health insurance. In 2014, it'll be $95. That'll go up over a 3-year period to $695 in 2016. That's one option, or it's a percentage of your income. We can throw that up as well. If it's in 2014, it would be 1% of your income, the penalty. And again, up to 2016, that would go up to 2.5%. The two examples is the federal government's going to impose upon you whichever one is higher, the percentage of your income or the nominal fee.
Up to about $12,000, right?
Up to about $12,000 cap.
$12,500, there we go.
But here's the big kicker. You know, that is substantially less, no matter which one you pick, than the cost of insurance. Take myself.
Right.
I have a wife and 2 children, and I spend in the state of New York somewhere like $1,200 a month on insurance. Now, I buy it myself. I don't get it through an employer. That's about $15,000 a year, and that's a lot less. Take your average person. That's a very average family, I would say, a wife, 2 kids. Say that somebody makes $100,000 a year, you're going to pay a $1,000 fine with no pre-existing conditions.
Take the fine.
Take the fine.
Right.
You get insurance the minute you get pre-existing conditions.
Right.
You
can opt in whenever.
Get my insurance at that point. The whole thing collapses upon itself. Now, on top of this, quickly I'll say, they don't even have an enforcement mechanism regardless of the fact you don't pay for it. Now, Ovik, please jump in and tell me where I'm wrong on this. But I think we have a quote from the brief, the Obamacare legal team briefing from the Supreme Court, saying that although the Act provides the IRS may not use criminal prosecutions, notices of federal tax liens, or levies on properties to collect an unpaid penalty, they may employ offsets against federal tax refunds. That's essentially the only way that they're going to be able to collect this penalty tax from you should you not buy insurance through your tax refund. I would suggest to you so people might quit overpaying on their taxes and anticipating their tax refund. The point we're making here is, how is this ever going to fulfill its own obligations? How does it live up to its own billing? It's self-destruct under its own poor writing, making repeal, I don't know, Ovik, superfluous or maybe imminent.
You know, Will, psychiatrists say that there are 5 stages of grief. You know what the first stage of grief is?
Denial?
Denial. You know,
Which one are you in?
I'm still in anger, I think. Well, you know, so here's the thing. When the left blew up the housing market through using Fannie and Freddie to force banks to lend money to people who weren't credit worthy, when that program blew up, did they roll back Fannie and Freddie? No, they instituted TARP.
Right.
They took over the banking system, right? When the left makes policy mistakes that blow up the economy, they don't blame themselves. They blame market failure. They blame capitalists. They blame greed. And that's what's going to happen here.
So I think that's an incredibly fair point. Game that out for me. How does that happen? The minute they see that the incentives are such that people are going to pay the penalty, a penalty they actually can't collect, as the IRS can't collect, what are they going to do? Raise the penalties?
Yeah, so what they're going to do is they're either going to raise the penalties or they're going to watch the private insurance market blow up and use that as a pretext to institute single payer. Say the private insurance market can't function, we've got to step in with our own program because that's the only way to make sure that people don't lose coverage. And a couple centrist Republicans will go along with it, not seeing any alternative. And next thing you know, we have Medicare for all.
Won't this push people towards these exchanges? I mean, if you want to expand a little bit more on that. I mean, that's the concern I've heard.
Yeah, that's certainly true to a degree. So what will happen is that because the exchanges provide subsidized care, a lot of employers will have the incentive to drop coverage for their employees because both the workers and themselves will get a better deal. They'll pay a $2,000 fine per worker, but you'll get subsidized insurance through the federal government. So everyone wins except all the other taxpayers. And so there's almost certainly going to be a lot more of that than what the government thinks. And then what will happen is the government will use their control of the exchange to kind of tighten their control of what those exchanges
I
can
think
offer.
the enforcement side of it they'll get stronger on too. If you remember, necessary and proper was one of the ways they tried to force this through, and they said, well, first you have to obtain that this is, you can't have one without the other. Well, now we know that they could actually advance that argument, I think, because it is constitutional, and they could expand the enforcement mechanisms. You're hoping that the bureaucracy is going to be in some way incapable of collecting money from citizens. I think that is absolutely silly because they're going to always be able to hire more IRS agents. They've already started to do that, and they can just keep taking swings at the statist piñata until they get what they want out of this, and that's what they're going to do.
I think what Will is trying to get to is the fact that you could have a lot of people who basically get off scot-free for not getting insurance, and at the end, what if you actually have fewer people insured?
Sure.
Because of Obamacare. Doesn't that take the wind at least out of the political argument for it? What they do to sort of get around it, go towards single payer, sure, but doesn't that, I think that's what you're saying, make it
They can strengthen the
collapse
mechanism.
under its own weight
Why couldn't they strengthen the
when fewer
mechanism?
people are insured?
Right,
but wouldn't that actually energize people to say some people are cheating? And we need to have enforcement.
Stronger
There are these
enforcement.
People, and from what I understand, Obamacare it funds 19,000 new
let me say
IRS
this.
That will be
workers.
opponents' faults for not making the clear enough argument that this is not working. It's not that people are cheating, it's that people are using the system very effectively to not get insurance if they don't want it,
And that-
or to pay the fine instituted by Obamacare.
Or they don't pay the fine
No, that
at
is
all.